In wanting to learn new things, which is what taking on your growth mindset is all about, we are going to need to take on challenges, because if you just stick with what you already know that you can do, then you're not going to make a lot of steps forward in your learning. So challenges are a big part of having a growth mindset, but taking challenges can be a bit of a scary place to be, because it's about taking on things that you don't find easy and are not necessarily something that you've done before. So the way we talk about it with children in the classroom is that it's like a fried egg. You have a yummy yolk in the middle, which is your comfort zone, basically. It's the things that you already know how to do. Then on the outside of that is your wobbly white, which is all wobbly because you're still learning how to do something and you're trying to firm it up by practicing things, repeating things, taking on feedback, learning from mistakes, all of that. And then the next layer out, if you've left your egg in the pan too long, you get a crispy frazzled edge. And that's kind of like the area you get to when you're a bit frustrated in learning something new, that perhaps something is a little bit further out than you are kind of ready for. So perhaps you need to take a step back into your learning zone, your wobbly white, to kind of firm up and consolidate that so that you are a lot more sort of confident in how to do something, and therefore those harder challenges will be easier for you to do. And the idea behind it is to show children that learning is not static, it's always moving. So what might once have been in your yummy yolk is what might have been once in your wobbly white is at some point, if you keep practicing, it's going to be in your yummy yolk. And something that's on your crispy frazzled edge, hopefully at some point, it will become in your learning zone, your wobbly white, and then move again into your yummy yolk. So learning is always moving, things are always changing, and that's another element to the mindset, is that change is happening, it's always possible. So in terms of where we are with COVID-19, we are facing massive challenges. Obviously the biggest challenge of all being, how are we going to get underneath this virus and find ways to stop its spread, to protect ourselves. And that's not just nationally, that is obviously globally, because the impact is going to be felt by all nations because of what is happening around the rest of the world. So my anecdotes and things that I'm going to talk about in relation to challenge at the moment are taken from kind of a global picture, a national picture, a local picture, and also a personal picture. And you will have your own examples of things that have been going on in your life that you will be able to say have been challenging. And the important thing is to make sure that we are taking those challenges on, but also that we're not just giving up in the face of challenge. We're actually finding ways to work through those challenges. Some challenges, they're about the importance of challenging where we are in our thinking, and it gives us a way of allowing ourselves to accept that challenge. So when we're thinking about this, it does help our mental health, and I think this is largely why going back to growth mindset principles is helping me, is because we are in a difficult situation, and recognizing that actually being in a difficult situation doesn't have to be a bad place to be. It's about what elements can we bring to those situations that are going to help us learn and help us progress and be stronger in the future. And there are definitely instances of that happening all around us at the moment. So it's a choice as a human being to kind of cope. It's a coping strategy, and we are being challenged in lots of different ways so that we can cope by distraction, if you like. If we're taking on those challenges, kind of maybe forcing ourselves to go down that road sometimes in order to give us that distraction. But it's not a distraction that gives us a false hope. We need to hold on to the positives that all of this is bringing us, and take those positives with us into life after COVID-19. And I think that echoes the sentiment of growth mindset, is this idea of hope and things being able to change, because ultimately the theory has come from, looking at our intelligence as not being a fixed entity. So what we're born with is what we've got, and that's the end of it, which is a bit of a hopeless place to be, but that the brain can change and can develop. And I know Dweck has done studies subsequently into things like peace processes, things like bullying, with that idea that change is possible, things aren't fixed. And they found things like children in bullying situations are more likely to see a bully as being able to change their ways, so that we can educate them, and education being powerful, if they have that kind of growth mindset mentality, because they see that things can be changed. Okay, so being forced into the challenges that we are being forced into at the moment, we are having to dig deep. We are having to think creatively. We are having to think outside of the box. And as in other videos that I will talk about, we are having to find solutions to setbacks that possibly we haven't ever had to think about, certainly not on as prolific and speedy a scale as we are having to do at the moment. And that is really challenging us, the speed at which we've got to do this. We're being driven by challenge. And I think we have to be driven by challenge rather than run from it. So in the fixed mindset, you are more likely to run from challenge because you don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to be challenged, which is going to obviously make you make those mistakes. You don't see the point in putting effort. So in the growth mindset, effort is seen in a very different way to the fixed mindset. So if you're fixed, effort is seen as being pointless, whereas in the growth mindset, it's seen as the thing that will help you to grow and progress. So for examples that are happening to do with challenge that I've picked up on specifically in the news, I was hearing about Formula One, the Formula One AMG team, who had partnered up with UCLH, the University College London Hospital, and they have been putting together breathing devices that are not ventilators, but they're kind of the first step towards ventilators, and they allow you to get a lot more air and oxygen at a more continuous rate into your lungs. So that has been bringing those skills together, has been really, really useful. And obviously bringing those different skills that Formula One have got to what UCLH can offer has been really, really helpful. I've seen Dyson, who have moved from producing vacuums to ventilators. I've seen NHS staff who are retired, and I think the number is about 20,000 NHS staff that have been re-recruited in order to help fight the challenge that is COVID-19. There has been a call for volunteers to support the vulnerable at this time who can't go out due to social distancing, and where the target set had been 100,000, 400,000 people had signed up for that. So the nation is rallying to tackle this challenge head on, and it's because we've got those numbers and we're working together that is going to be really effective and really powerful. So the speed at which our lives have been turned upside down is also a massive challenge, and something that we, not only businesses, have had to cope with things quickly and how to kind of answer this situation. We ourselves as civilians within this society have had to think about how we meet the challenge and cope with having to stay at home and socially distance from each other. We are social animals, so actually being apart from each other is really very difficult, and people have had to find ways around that. So I will talk more in the video about setbacks and solutions about that idea. But I think the idea of setbacks and solutions goes hand in hand with challenges, because when you take on challenges, obviously you are going to hit setbacks and you've got to find a way around them rather than run from it. So they all kind of go hand in hand with each other. And a lot of the videos that I will talk about, I might repeat certain points, which is no bad thing because I think it helps reiterate the messages. But it also shows you that there are massive overlaps in all of this. And if you can encompass all of those ideas within your being, within your existence and the way you operate, that is going to help you to be more of a growth mindset individual and ultimately achieve more. So social distancing, there was a little incident that happened to me when I was standing in a queue down the road 2 meters apart, going to the greengrocers, our local greengrocers. And while I was in the queue, there's some, bits and pieces outside the shop. And a lady in front of me had, when she'd got to those boxes, had picked up some daffodils. And I thought, oh, some daffodils. Okay, that might be nice to get. And then as I approached the box, when she'd moved further forward, I picked up some, and it created a little discussion between the two of us about how we needed to cheer our homes up, and that it's the little things in life at the moment that are really helping us to meet this challenge of being out of the outside, so inside, and also away from each other, those little things that are going to help our mental health and cheer us up a bit. And I think that made me think about the fact that it is the little things that we're coming back to. And that's what's so nice about all of this in a way, is that the basics, like a good night's sleep, a good cup of tea. I did say to my husband, oh my word, what happens if we can't get hold of tea? Because how is our nation going to cope if we have a tea shortage? So keeping mentally healthy is very important. I had my own difficulty when all of this first started. My birthday's on the 17th of March, which is basically when all of this started to kick off. This year is actually was my 40th birthday, 30th, I wish, 40th birthday. And because of what was happening, I obviously couldn't interact and celebrate with my family and friends as I would have done had we not been in this situation. So at that point, the takeaways were still operating. So we got a takeaway curry, me and my husband, and then my family at home also, my mum and dad got a takeaway curry at their end as well, because they don't live near us. And then we shared that online together. So it's about finding ways around those challenges. And whilst it wasn't the celebration that I hoped it was going to be, I'm now considering myself just as being 39, and next year maybe I'll possibly consider being 40 and then rerun the whole thing. So I think that all of this and the growth mindset in itself is a way of controlling our emotions. So if we are able to think about this situation in a growth mindset sense, we are able to look at all of this as a challenge that we have to overcome. And there's lots of different ways within mindset that will help us to overcome it. So I have been watching the news like everybody else. Some of the bits of news you have to, sometimes I feel like, I'm not really in a place where I need to be watching the news. And so you have to be kind of mindful of where you are mentally. Sometimes it's a bit too much to see that, but it's useful to kind of keep stock of where we are as a country. So, I think the news have got the news teams have got a difficult job, because they have to balance informing us and showing us enough that we realise that this is a serious situation and that we have to play our parts, but also not overload us with that, and to pick up on the positives, which is what I'm trying to do, because our mental health is going to suffer in some ways through this. And the more we let it, because sometimes it's a choice about how far we go with that. And I think this the mindset stuff is largely what's helping me to think about all of this and my resilience through this. So I think there's a lot of balance that needs to be found in the messages that we are receiving and how we approach the challenges that we're faced with. So, for example, another example I can think of, sort of personal to my own life, is that just before all of this happened, so literally as we were still at school, we had some parents that are of a scientific background of children in the school who ran some workshops about the importance of washing our hands and also how viruses work and how they spread. And their challenge was to get through the entire school before, because we could see it was imminent probably that we were not going to be in school, to try and get through as many of the children through the school as we could, because as soon as we were off, we were going to lose that opportunity. So it was about seizing the opportunity, but also, like I was just talking about balance, it was about giving the children enough information that it was informative, and it showed them that we did need to be thinking about these things specifically at this time. But it's also relevant to, you know, viruses in general, but also we didn't want to scare them. So they knew something was going on, obviously, but it was about putting it in a way that wasn't going to frighten them as well. So I think that's where I will end this video. So that we do have these challenges, and it's about finding balance and creating that sort of equilibrium so that we see the seriousness behind a lot of these challenges, but also that we see the positive side, that we can learn from this. And there's a huge amount that we're learning that we'll be able to take, hopefully, into the future with us.